Hey, what's up? This is Laidback Luke, DJ and producer, Kung Fu athlete, and family guy. Tracks are getting shorter and shorter, and how are we supposed to mix them when they don't even have an intro or outro beats?
It was the 3rd of September. But
before I give you DJ advice, let me talk to you about the DJ mix that I did for the new Mix Mash radio format. 6 weeks ago we launched our very first episode with a guest mix by a new talent every week ever since. Yesterday it was my turn and I enjoyed this new format very much. No nonsense, just good music. Also happy to be focusing on a lot of new things coming up. For instance, we are very busy preparing the rest of the first Late Night Luke season. Let me know in the comments below which guests you would like to see and what topics we should talk about. Last but not least, I am doing a back-to-back set with Gattuso at 10:15 CEST tonight for SW4. Make sure to tune in. Okay, so let's go in. Here's my 7 tips on how to DJ with edits. We all know how to mix extended versions by now, which almost always comes with 16 bars of intro beats and 16 bars of outro beats. But the more we start implementing streaming services in our DJ sets, the more we will come across the short edits, and it can be tough to mix those without dedicated intros and outro beats. Before we go in, let's realize that we really need to program our hotkeys here. Hotkeys are your friends. Within programming hotkeys, it's good to be able to recognize what the different sections are in the tracks. Listening out for breaks, build-ups, and drops, and putting a hotkey on all of those will help you out a lot. Okay, so let's go in and I'll take you through video number 1, where we would simply drop the cue point in the mix. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to make sure the BPMs of the tracks are the same. And then we have the vocal on the first beat ready under a hotkey. Now we could use it this way, but I'm thinking of having it under the cue button instead, right here. So you can make it a little bit choppier. Okay, so on the other side I have the drop here. So this would be the out mixing track. We're just waiting for the momentum here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so after 8 bars of this, we're just gonna drop the hotkey in. Checking if it's good still. Okay, so just under the play button on the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, dropping it in. And so it's pretty seamless. And so this is pretty seamless already, having made sure all the parameters are right and aligned, like the BPM, the cue points, and the right momentum. But it still sounds a bit choppy. And so how can we gel that transition a little bit better? So for this one, we're going to utilize the sweep effects. This will give us a more wet transition. So okay, so everything's set up again, and let's start the drop right here. And then with the filter knob, we can utilize that sweep effects. Echo is under there. And what we want to do is open up the filter on the last note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and throw the vocal in there. So that was a bit smoother now, but we could also turn the sweep effects knob all the way to the right. So for you, to the right. This would give us a little bit more tail on the mixing out track. Let me show you. Let's get back into the drop. And we're waiting for the momentum. Just remember on the 4, the sweep effects button goes all the way to the right. Okay, here it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can do that, also do that on your vocal as the outro. Another technique is to fade in that vocal by tapping the hot cue or the cue button. It will give a little bit of fade in, so to say. But then you will need to adapt your counting a little bit, because for this one, we'll start before the momentum. Let's have a look. I'm gonna utilize the hot cue for this one. So we'd basically be fading in that with the use of the fade. Okay, back into the drop. So this is close right now. And we're gonna fade in before the momentum. Here we go. Momentum is here. And now it goes. The ear finds this pleasing too, so it knows what's coming up ahead, and this too will prevent the transition from being choppy. Let me do the same thing, but now with just the cue button, which isn't triggered like the hot cue button. This means when I let the button go, it will stop playing. And so this time around, I'll add the sweep effects all the way to the right as well. So now we get a fade in combined with a fade out, so to say. Just checking if my cue button is still in the same position. It is. So we're using the echo here and sweep effects all the way to the right. Okay, this fader open, and we're gonna dive into the drop. Then remember to count before the momentum here. Okay, here we go. Oh boy, this can be a little bit tricky. You will find yourself counting and doing all sorts of things at the same time. Practice makes perfect, but the result sounds great, having a head and tilt to the mix, so to say. So instead of manually tapping the vocal or sample in, we could loop it too. This is the number 3 technique that I can recommend you. So then we'll be switching from hot cue to loop. Starting here, setting it in point, and there's the out. So it's 2 notes, right? And we can use that for the fade in. Okay, here's the drop. And we can just hit play whenever. We can make sure to align that and sing that. Fade in is here. Okay, so I did press this button when the actual thing needed to start. Which is a tricky thing as well, right? When the mixing out track has been faded out, you will immediately need to release the loop as well. If you would use a 4-beat or 1-bar loop, which I won't show you here, you will actually have a bit of time there. Okay, so now we're gonna do the same thing, but we'll add a filter to that. This way you can nicely filter the loop vocal in. Let's have a look. We will need to make sure that the sweep effects is on the filter right now, and we're going to utilize that. So the filter is closed right now, so it's muffled, so to say. Let's have a listen with the drop. And then sync it up again. And you can just open the filter gradually. Maybe even use it on the other channel. And then don't forget that release, huh? That's a tricky thing. I have to be honest with you, I needed to do that a couple of times too. The releasing of the loop just in time. Moving on to number 4 here, another idea can be to mix the vocal over the drop. A lot of edits start with a pretty empty vocal, and you can actually utilize that for your mix. I'll show you, but here's something to remember with that. Vocals rarely start on the 1, so it will be interesting for you to find out where the first vocal actually sits when placing a hot cue for this technique. Ooh, this will be very interesting to see, but before we do, a new music alert. We dropped Runaway by Ale Mora and Brian van Andel featuring Griffey on our main label last week, including such a vibey lyric video which is available on YouTube. Make sure to check it out and be sure to let me know what you think of these Latin vibes and if we should release some more of this. Today we got 2 absolute bangers our very own Lady B released A Night and Day featuring the always wonderful Dorothy Sherman. What a combo! And also Thomas Nahn is back at it again with Real Love on Mixmash Deep in collaboration with Howen featuring some nice vocals by Noah Avery. I am definitely keeping my eye on this one, hope you do too. So okay, I was just about to explain why mixing a vocal onto a drop might be tough. And so why is that? Usually the vocal doesn't start on the 1. In this case it starts on the 4. So we need to have that in mind while counting. So here's the drop. So it needs to start on the 4, the vocal. Okay, here we go, the momentum. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this sounds nice. And we'll just mix out here. And there's the mix. For number 5, we're going to mix a build on build here. I'll give you a few examples, but we'll run into something odd straight away, and that is that sometimes in edits, the build is 4 bars instead of 8. And so what to do? First you're gonna figure out how long the build exactly is. So this one is 8 bars, which I have under a hot cue, and this build is actually 4 bars, which is under this hot cue. And so it'll become a game of counting right now. So I'll start with the 8 bar build here. And it just means that 4 bars in, I'll need to start the other one, which is here. Starting it. And then they finish equally. Don't stop, we gonna make the thing go. And there's the transition. And so the use of this is I can actually go back to that orange hot cue again and have it solo played, so to say. Okay, so the track is running out. And then you could go back to the build, to the 4 bar build, and then maybe start mixing another track or getting another track ready here. A relatively simple technique and something you can apply in various scenarios. I did, however, wanted to show you the technique when both builds are actually 8 bars, so let's continue and look at that right now. So I'm just gonna skip a little bit earlier in the track and just pay attention to when it reaches that yellow line where the hot cue is, right? But when it does that, I'll need to trigger the other build as well. Okay, so that's coming up right here. So pressing the other player. Let me sync it up really quick, by ear of course. Okay, so both builds were equally as long. And there's the transition. I think this is pretty clear, right? If not, and if you have any questions, tips or comments to help us out here, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. Okay, so how about mixing a build into a drop then? We are moving to the number 6 technique in this video, and we're going to utilize that same build hot cue point, but now we'll use that to layer over a drop. Here we go. Okay, so it's this hot cue of this track I'm gonna layer on top of this drop. Okay, so I'm just gonna have the track play. Here's the drop. And, you know, we're counting in the background, right? So I want it to come in after 8 bars of the drop. Okay, a little less bass, and here the build starts. Remember, it's 8 bars. Can have some fun with the EQs, right? And there's the transition. a build over a drop, and it's rare within the music that I play that there's no build or drop in an edit. So these could be valuable tools for you. If you think so too, make sure to leave me a like right now. Okay, the final technique here, technique number 7, which is a drop on top of a drop. It's a little bit of a radical concept, but have a look for a moment and see how I do it. First thing, I'll need to program the drop hotkey here. Okay, so that's set. And then just gonna play this track, and I'm gonna dive straight into the drop. Okay, drop is here. And notice I press the hotkey button of the drop at the same time, right? On the mixing in track. Okay, just syncing it up, right? Okay, both are running right now. Swapping out the bass EQs here. And they align nicely now. Okay, taking the bass out, and so the track on the right is in its outro beats now. Almost done. And our mixing in track will go into the second break. The other track is finished now. So there's the transition. Often it will sound very busy in the mix, mixing 2 drops on top of each other, but remember, you can utilize the filter for this one too, as well as your EQs. If you think it needs less mid or less high EQ, you can just go ahead and adjust that while you're in the mix. My point here is that you can use any drop in an edit and use it as an intro or outro. Might be worth to think about it and give it a try. Let me try and give a shout out to the comments from last time's vlog where I listened to your demos. Shout out to Black's Torques on the number 2 comment. Thank you for the support as well. And on the number 1 spot is Naihavo Music, coming through with some hope. I hope you and anyone that's watching right now that's a producer will be picked up as well. I truly do. It's always so nice to read through the comments, and if you have one for this vlog, make sure to leave one down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well, and I hope you will enjoy practicing after seeing this vlog, and make sure you tune back here in 2 weeks. Until then, L's up, rave safely, and salute.